Was it good?
Oh, yeah. I just had a big old swig of the next episode of the EduTech Guys.
Yeah!
You're listening to the EduTech Guys. EduTechGuys.com.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the EduTech Guys. Thanks for grabbing a swig. I'm David Henderson.
I know. I was in my brain is like swig. That swig of Jeff Madlock's what you got right here.
Thanks for downloading, tuning in, turning on, bellying up to the EduTech Guys bar.
That's where we're going, huh? It's a big old barrel. Tapping the barrel of EduTech Guys right here. You can catch us on the old social medias out there. EduTech Guys, just look us up. And you can find us always at edutechguys.com, which also links to our social medias, which links back to our website, which will take you to the social medias also.
It's the circle of life.
It's the always, almost never, always going to happen.
That's it right there. Exactly.
You know, that's what's funny. I was telling Ronnie, yes, sir, the other day, our production guy, he's in the booth over there. It's really just a cardboard box. It's a refrigerator box that I put a piece of cellophane over. It looks like a box.
It looks like he's looking.
He was complaining about not having a place to work out of, so, he had to do something.
It's a legit complaint.
It is a legit complaint. Our budget here, I could have done probably at least not cellophane for the window. It was
No,
you're right.
No, it had to be cellophane.
I have to talk to the CFO. Hey, can we afford anything, guys?
No, we cannot. It's cellophane.
That's high budgeting around here. And it's only one box of cellophane a year.
Listen, we're one step above 12.
I was going to say, so I know we can't afford cling wrap. We just have to go with regular old saran wrap. No cling wrap.
No clinging.
Yeah, this is actually a podcast about educational technology.
Hard to believe, isn't it? This is where we go.
This is what we do. This is how crazy it gets. Hey, got a great show today, and it's we're always talking about AI, and so this show is really kind of cool. It's talking about a neat service from a company that's created something that actually works in education the same way. I mean, it's something that works across the board. This is something that you can carry with you and your tool belt, I think, around the world. Sorry, it took me a second. I smelled burned feathers, and then I think I might have had me in that spring on
that spring.
The mola.
Next time, maybe not take quite such a big swig.
That's what does it to you. It goes straight to your head.
That's right.
It's the fizzy lifting drink of educational podcasting.
That's gonna be our tagline.
It's David screaming, "You get nothing! You get nothing! Everlasting gobstoppers, nothing! You get nothing!" So, hey, listen. Once again, thanks for coming on the show. We'll get. In fact, let's jump right out to a quick sponsor. And, our sponsor system runs off of, we don't know how it runs, honestly.
all we know is that we say, insert sponsor here.
Hey, there are 60 years of educational technology knowledge right here, but we have no idea how the sponsorship stuff works on our podcast. Ross, that's you. And that's someone else. He knows who he is.
He knows. Yes, I hope he knows who he is.
I hope he's listening to this podcast.
I hadn't thought of that before.
Dun, dun, dun.
Surely.
Sponsor. Be right back. Hey, welcome back to the EduTech Guys. We're really excited to have our next guest with us, and we're going to let him introduce himself, tell us who he is, what he does, and all that kind of good stuff. So here we go.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so my name's Jon Gillham. I'm the founder, CEO of Originality.ai. My background is that I was an engineer turned internet marketer, had sold a content marketing business, had seen sort of the wave of generative AI coming, and we built an AI detector primarily for the digital marketing world. But since the launch of ChatGPT, it's been heavily adopted by a lot of individuals in academia. And now we're just wrestling with all the challenges that presents. And it's been an interesting journey.
So cool. So I guess here's a question I was thinking of. So in your previous endeavors in life, before this, what did you start to notice that, we always talk about, we do so much work, we create things, we do things, and our universe keeps us keen and aware of things that are happening, and we see those things and they really pop out. So when you were doing the other things you were doing, what was really starting to pop out that you realized, hey, you know what? This is something that's lacking that I think I can fix?
Yeah, so it was for a lot of us, for a lot of people, there was a pre-AI world, which was sort of essentially pre-ChatGPT, and then a post-AI world, which was post-ChatGPT. The reality was that there was a lot of AI writing tools that existed that predated ChatGPT, tools like Jasper that were heavily adopted by freelance writers. And so we had seen that inside of the writers that we were working with, where we would put controls in place to say, policy is you won't use AI in your writing. You're being paid for human written content. But then when we looked at our sort of mitigating controls, so we put in a policy, but then there really wasn't any mitigating control that was effective. And so that's what got us down the path of a couple of research papers later. And we're like, maybe we can build a classifier that is able to tell the difference between the two.
And so it's interesting. You realize the pitfalls that could be financially, morally, socially a problem for, first of all, companies that were coming out, marketing especially. Along that line, you realize those pitfalls existed, and so you develop this. So let's talk about that. So the core of Originality AI. What's the core value that before we even get into academia really makes the users go, this is exactly why I use it, because it saved me here?
Yeah. So there's a few primary reasons that our sort of ideal customer that we built for website, people that are publishing content on the web, that they use AI detection in particular for. There first is sort of a fairness component on, if you paid someone to write an article, you don't want to know, whatever your rate is, $100, $1,000 for an article. You don't want them to have copied and pasted it in 10 seconds at a ChatGPT. There's just a fairness component to that doesn't feel right. And then the second piece is and it's a little bit more complex, but there's an increased risk of publishing when you publish AI generated content. And this comes back to Google, who, if their search results are filled with nothing but generative AI content, it's an existential threat to them. Why would people go to their search results, click through a bunch of ads to get to the result versus go direct to the AI? And Google has taken some very aggressive stances against AI generated spam and punished sites. And so publishers know that they're increasing their risk profile when they allow generative AI content to be published on their site. Some choose to do it, some debate what the extent of that risk is. But I think if people have the choice between human content on their site or AI content on their site, people would, all other things being equal, would rather see human content on their site.
Oh, I agree, 110%.
And I do agree. I do find it very interesting. And I'm curious to know what your take is on this perspective. I think it's very interesting that Google, of all companies, has kind of spoken up and said thou shalt not use AI to generate content, and yet when you do, Google searches, especially now, the very first result you get is an AI generated result of what you were looking for. So
you don't have to practice what you preach, man.
How does that? but how does that? So how do you help those content? The folks who are producing content, or specifically that are using Originality.ai to navigate that kind of paradox.
Yeah, it is super fascinating. I think Google has an incredibly challenging position to be in, where they don't want to be Kodak and have invented the digital camera and now gone extinct.
Right.
And so they need to be this sort of like AI forward company. But then they are facing this existential risk on if their search results are just nothing but AI spam. And so the approach that they have taken is, it doesn't matter if it's AI. Their sort of public messaging is, it doesn't matter if it's AI or not. But there's a lot of signs that wink, wink, we really, really hate AI spam. And so not all AI content is spam, but all spam in 2024 was generated by AI. And so that's the risk that they have. So that's the risk that publishers have, and Google has this really fine line to try and walk. And publishers want to make sure that they don't fall afoul of Google's whims, and so they're trying to stay on the right side of that. So it is hard for Google, and it's hard for publishers as well to navigate this world now.
Yeah, and I would imagine. And we may get deeper into this as we get more into, especially the kind of plagiarism side, but even just the detecting of whether or not a an author is using AI to produce the content that they're getting paid for. So, we have these detections. To me, how close are we to like the whole, radar detector scenario, right? So we have radar detectors, and then the other side, the police, have radar detectors, and now we have radar detectors. I mean, how far does this go down? How far does this rabbit hole go down with AI?
Yeah, it's there. I mean, we've got there's a bunch of tools that are meant to bypass detectors. And there's some really weird use cases out there where people are using it to try and bypass detection. But then, in the case of a lot of our customers, we're not Google. So like, we don't, if just because you could trick us doesn't mean you can trick Google. And if that's what you're trying to do, then you're really putting in a lot of effort to get no further down the field. So we're there. We're in an arms race already, where we've got the AIs, we've got the detectors, and then we've got tools that are attempting to bypass detectors.
The beautiful part is eventually it's going to come back down to, well, the time I took to do all this to not detect and detect, well, I should just write it myself.
Right, yeah.
I should just stop, I should just make it 100% me. That way I don't, because time is money. And, that's the funny part is we're trying to save money and time. And
well, and I think that, ultimately, and there, I'm sure there are cases, and you may be aware of cases, and I would love to, kind of hear some of your thoughts or experiences where folks did decide to go down that path, even if it was just very at a cursory level of trying to kind of, quote, beat the AI, and it ultimately cost them their jobs or livelihood, or at least for that time being, where you've got these folks who they decided to play the game anyway, and they may have got decent paychecks in the short term, but in the long run their reputation is trashed. Do you have any experience along those lines?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot. So very similar. So we've had a lot of sites, I guess related, where they kind of put similar, where they put their head in the sand to some extent and said we don't care. And the end result was that they ended up publishing a lot of AI content. Their site got de-indexed by Google, and they said we didn't think our writers were using AI. And then when we went and looked at them, they were extensively using AI, and they got wrapped up in an update from Google and got their site, their business got destroyed. And so I'd say there's been a lot of cases where there's still a sort of a willful blindness of like, oh no, I trust my writers, my students, they're not using AI. I don't need to put in any mitigating controls. And it's like, well, they studies say otherwise.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question on this before we jump ahead any farther. What's your feeling on? So let's say we use a generative AI to write a summary of our podcasting, and we use that as our description inside our podcast posting. How do you feel about that kind of stuff? Because we see a lot of that going on. We see a lot of content created, and then the writing for it is generated with AI. Do you think, to me, I think it should be, if we use that, we put afterwards generated with an AI summary, just to be open and honest about, we did this content, but it wrote it for us.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty close to not. I think society is going to wrestle with where is AI tolerable and where is it not. And I would say that's a pretty clean use case of saying I would not feel offended as a reader if there was a show notes summary on a podcast and I got to read that and it was AI generated, but the sort of net new information, the information gained, the knowledge that I obtained was from that human interaction that was just synthesized with AI. Mm-hmm. I use AI extensively. It's a better writer than I am. Mm-hmm. And so I use ChatGPT a lot to sort of put my dumb thoughts down, and they make it sound better.
Yeah, and I put a lot of dumb thoughts down. So, and even then, AI is kind of like, dude, we can't help you.
You got to go again.
Yes. Listen, I take that and I put it back in 4 more times, and then I might get something worthwhile.
You're in for a rough time when AI is like, I don't know what you're trying to do.
And that's just a text to my wife. That's just me texting my wife. That's all that is. So let's talk about this. Its role in academia. Where do you see it working in education? Even starting at, second grade when kids start to write, where do you see this kind of thing, really helping children move along?
Yeah, so it's a problem that we've kind of taken an easy road out of, where we've said like our tool, like, hey, our tool's not for academia. which is kind of like, I think we're the only AI detector in the world that says that, even though we're the most accurate, and a ton of academia uses us.
Yeah.
The use of it. So if we're talking just general AI, I think it's amazing. When I see the use of it with my own kids, I don't know how to like what I used to do of like, hey, I don't really know how to explain this. Let's watch a YouTube video.
Yeah.
It's one directional. That might be great, but then there's a bunch of follow-on questions, and it's phenomenal to like just put AI into that conversation and guide a learning journey. It's absolutely incredible. Or like my son coding, it produces an amazing speed and a fearlessness of learning, because there's always this sort of support that is right behind them in terms of being able to help them on that journey at whatever stage they're at.
I love that answer. And what I love about that is that shows the interaction of you as the actual educator in that sense, making sure that your kids are doing the right thing and understand the tool that they're using. Because that's just it. It's using the correct tool. That's a spot on answer. I mean, I'm gonna steal that, by the way, because that was
sounds great.
I'm gonna modify that and use it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
we'll get ChatGPT to just run it back.
Yeah, that's right.
Make it sound better.
So one of the things that you had mentioned at the top of the show, and you sort of alluded to it here, yes, you are well aware that academia is using it, but you're also distancing yourself from it. And earlier you had mentioned, there are some hurdles and some caveats when, that have creeped up because academia started using. So touch on that. I'm very curious as to what that looks like from your side of this coin.
Yeah, from developer.
Yeah. So, I mean, the root cause of all those comments is around false positives. So these detectors are classifiers where they provide I believe it's AI or I believe it's human, and then they provide a confidence score associated with that. Similar to weather forecasting, it provides I think it's going to rain. Here's the probability. It may or might not rain. There's an accuracy rate associated with these classifiers. Their accuracy can be extremely high. We're 99% on correctly calling AI, and then we're sort of 97% or 3% false positive rate of incorrectly calling human work AI. That is great accuracy in a lot of use cases, but when it comes to sort of academic discipline and enforcement around an academic dishonesty situation, that is not high enough. There's no provable path to saying the tool says it's AI and here's the reasons why, the way that there was in plagiarism. And so the use of sort of the unrestricted use of AI in academia is 100% a problem. And the defense, the lack of the written word as an educational tool, the lack of sort of assigned writing as an educational tool would be very detrimental to education. And so I think it's a problem that I don't think detectors are the right solution for completely solving. And because of that, I think they're going to be used for a short period of time. They're going to be used within academia for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. But I think in the end, it's going to have to be a sort of enclosed writing environment that is supervised, monitored with more spyware than we would like associated with it. But I think that's going to be the end state of how the written word is defended as an educational tool.
Yeah, I know. My daughter graduated college last year, the year before. I don't know. It's all a blur. But where I'm going with this is she had one of her classes. You're talking about those kind of closed writing environments, and she was in a class where they used various browser extensions that essentially, for all intents and purposes, locked the browser in, and to the point. Not just lock the browser in so that you can't alt tab out and go research for other stuff, but it also used the camera on the laptop to track where your eyes were going and what your eyes were doing. So it wasn't like I could I can't tab out of my browser, so that's good. I got my phone. I just because the minute you pull up your phone, you start looking at your phone. well, the camera detects that, hey, you're not looking at me anymore. Possible red flag here to the instructor. Hey, what was this person doing? And she said it was a very nerve-wracking experience to be in that closed environment, especially at first. She said then she got used to it, and in her experience for that particular class, she said it was actually weirdly freeing, because then she could express herself the way she wanted to express herself without worrying about jumping online to go see if somebody else said something or didn't say something, because these were all her words, and ultimately for one of the research things that they did, the first part of it was in that environment, kind of almost like a brain dump, if you will. And then, of course, they were pulled out of that so that they could then go get the quotes they needed and the sources they needed, and not be flagged for, for using AI when actually they're just researching, But all that to say that the use of certain tools to help kind of combat the pitfalls of AI are definitely going to be in the future of students across the board.
Yeah. And I think people have been waiting for that sort of silver bullet from a detection standpoint, but I'm certain that it's not going to come. There will always be false positives, and other solutions will be needed. And like, I think it's a heavy-handed but probably effective approach that teacher took, but not the type of solution that I want to be involved building, but I understand why it's necessary.
Right. So, along that lines, what you guys provide, let's talk about what you provide for the individual entrepreneur, individual consultant that's a writing consultant. So I'm a freelancer doing my thing. What do I need from it? And then I'm a new marketing company, and there are 3 to 8 of us, so we're a team. And let's talk about what you guys provide there, because I know you guys do some really cool stuff, especially when it comes to teams. Being able to share history and all that kind of stuff. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so we really view ourselves sort of what's called vertical SaaS, where it's like what is a function that somebody does in an organization, and how can we help that organization be incredibly efficient? Mm-hmm. And what that role is that we try and build a bunch of tooling around is an editor. So you guys act as editors before you hit publish. So anybody that's working in an organization that will be hitting publish, they need to make sure that content meets certain standards. And so that is AI or not. We've talked a lot about that. That's sort of the kind of the burning question of the day. Mm-hmm. The question of the last 20 years was it plagiarized? So we have plagiarism checking. And whether you're pro AI or anti AI, no one wants to publish factually inaccurate information. And so we have a fact checker built in to be able to audit documents to assess whether or not they're factually correct or not. And then we have a readability checker to make sure it sort of sits in the right readability range, and then a spelling and grammar checker. And so it's meant to be that sort of complete QA QC solution for anybody that's functioning as an editor. And they could have the title of an editor, they could have the title of project manager, they could have the title of a writer, or whatever your title might be. But anybody that's about to hit publish, we try and help them do that with integrity. And then we build in functionality to help teams work together with scan history, account profiles, and sort of try and build out that sort of a more enterprisey solution that allows larger teams to work within that environment.
It's funny. I can see that as a freelancer. I can see you. I'm as a freelancer, I would be that every role. That's me. So that would come in really handy. Like, okay, this is going to check me from birth to death. Birth to publish.
Yeah.
So, but teams, I see it working really well. And I'll throw academia in there again, because at the college university level, it's the Harvard Review. I could see them going, hey, yeah, we're going to use this. This is where we're going to use this. So from the article writer all the way up through the publisher, the editor, this is where we're going to use this at, and it's going to make us valid.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's we say we don't love the use case in academia. Anything like that would be a perfect use case, and we have school newspapers using us for that
Sure.
reason.
Well, and I can see teaching a class on ethics in writing and, using it in that ethics in writing and to just be like, hey, yeah, this is what we use in that class. So I'm just throwing it out there for our listeners. It's great. But, really, my brain thinks of how am I going to use this in the classroom? Because, we can use it all in the classroom somewhere. But, what's really interesting, though, is I think about those kids graduating colleges. My girls are graduated and David's kids are graduated. And, I think about one of mine is an entrepreneur. She loves to try different things and looking for stuff. And, and this is exactly the single or team, her and her besties doing their thing. You need this. This is exactly what makes you valid. And so there's a really interesting one, the ethics of it. Do you guys get a lot of, I'm sure that when you have development and talks, in-house team talks, ethics comes up a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, a big one, what is AI and what is acceptable? Mm-hmm. Is it human? And it's not. It's people want to make a binary classification between the two, but it's far more nuanced than that. Should human written and then human written in a foreign language and then translated into English, should that be called AI? The answer is, I think, yes, because if not, then somebody could just translate English into foreign language and then back, and then it would pass. And then what about Grammarly and, what's now a far more comprehensive editing suggestion as opposed to just like, hey, you forgot a period and capital here. It's now, do you want to rewrite this sentence? Yeah. And if you have a really terribly written article and you follow all the recommendations, at what point does it change from that was your work into that was now AI work? And so we have a lot of discussions around where that line is and then trying to tune our detector to trying to communicate where we think that line should be, where our detector has been tuned to.
It's really interesting because everything, we've been around a long time. My first research paper was, I typed it all, had to be double spaced, and the library was the only place I could get information from. And, but what's interesting is, even back then, I remember the kids in my class that would do a paper on Beethoven or whatever they're going to do it. And the teacher, and this is a junior in high school, I think she read every book in the library because she would go, "You plagiarized this," And I was like, "How does she know that?" But she's been doing it a long time. I think she was 700 years old. But we see now originality is the key cornerstone of success it always has been, but it's harder now in the US and the world to be original. And so that's what I think about when, it's in your name. So, but there's the key is proving originality. When you guys do look at that kind of stuff and your developers work on it, that's more where the AI is one thing, but originality through plagiarism, everything else, that's a hard, what's the word I'm looking for? Ditch to jump, isn't it? I mean, to help people figure out that this is what we're here to make you do is be original. And that's why you need us.
Yeah, for sure. And we have some stuff coming down in development that we're really excited for, that will really sort of help. When people hit publish, they want to know that article will meet all these minimum standards, but will also be impactful. Mm-hmm. And so we're sort of covering off these like minimum standards at this point in terms of where the tool is, but we're really looking forward to sort of like moving into features that add that sort of, how do we go beyond, how do we know that this will be good in the world? How do we know that this will impact our users in a positive way? How do we know that this will drive business results for us in the form of published content? And so we feel like we're sort of like clicking off the must-have requirements. Yeah. But we're really excited to get into that, some of the stuff that you talked about, like how do we know it's original, providing new information into the world, useful and helpful. And I think that stuff's going to be even more exciting for the team to dig into.
Oh, I agree. The local business person needing just to write a paragraph in Facebook that's original and, meets what they need. That's exactly what you're talking about doing. Like giving them the confidence to go, I feel good about publishing this. This is what I need.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah. One of our sort of taglines that we're playing with is like publish with integrity. It's a little too like, like a little, we want to come up with something a little bit more exciting, than just sort of like defensive. But that, I feel like we're sort of at the publish with integrity stage. And then how do we go to the next more exciting stage?
Oh, so I'll go ahead and throw this out there because this publish with Originality.ai.
Yep.
Sorry. Anyway, that's why I have a podcast. That's
I think one of the things potentially, and I am speaking with like zero AI training experience at all, so I could be completely talking way outside of my head, which is why I'm going to say it, and then you can be like, oh yeah, that would work, or you're off your rocker, and I'm perfectly fine either way. But one of the things that, and this is kind of addressing what you were talking about, Jeff, in terms of how your teacher knew or had a pretty good idea that you had plagiarized. When I was teaching students, I was teaching college students writing courses, and one of the things that we did each class was we did just boom, in the moment, you're writing, you write about whatever topic I'm giving you, and you write. One of the things that I picked up on was I could pick up on the particular student's writing style, kind of their voice, right? Their writer's voice. So when they turned in a paper and I'm reading along and it's tracking pretty well, and then all of a sudden, like, there's a weird thing in the middle and you kind of go, this doesn't sound like the way you would say this. Are you sure this is, let's give some credit where this is. And of course, I'm working with students, helping them through that. So where I'm going with all of this is, do you see either the potential for, or again, if I'm off my rocker, perhaps in the future where, I don't know if it's us as individuals or if it's the instructors, again, we're talking academia, or heck, for that matter, even a content website provider who's looking for folks to submit stuff, where the AI is trained on that original content for Dave. And then therefore, when Dave turns in a document, then it runs its comparison and its checking against the original content that we know is original because it was off the top of your head, that type of stuff, or there's a big enough base of it or whatever. And then it's able to say, I think Dave might have plagiarized this. Or so how do you see that being a possible, I don't know if solution's the right word, but a possible scenario?
Yeah. So definitely not off your rocker. So that 100% doable. And what's interesting is there's been a bunch of studies around humans' capability of detecting AI generated content is really poor. We have a couple biases that are working against us. We have overconfidence bias. If you ask a room who is an above average driver, 80% of the room puts up their hand. And we have a significant sort of bias to be able to recognize patterns inside of chaos, because casinos are built off the back of that. And a lot of us, there's a lot of teachers in particular that these studies have been done around that think that they can view AI work and detect it as human or not. It's constantly shown that it's basically a coin flip with one exception. And that's exactly the scenario that you talked about, where if you have a history of this student's work and then they submit an AI piece of work, they can easily tell the difference between the human work that came from that body of work and the AI work. And then sort of the second part of that question around, will it be a scenario where a writing style of a specific student is identified and then tracked and able to be added to the equation on, is this human work or is this the student's work? And that's very, very doable with a good but not perfect level of precision.
Sure.
And so we're at, when we're talking sort of where we're at right now, around like 99% accurate, 3% false positive rate, the introduction of a sort of style and tone matching wouldn't provide a step change difference in terms of the reduction in the accuracy of the false positives. But it would be interesting to have, because it definitely would work, and it would add to the conversation, which is really the only effective means that exists right now, when a potential student when potentially a student used AI improperly.
Yeah, that's man. That's what scares me the most. I'm in deep trouble. So, John, if our listeners want to know more, find out more, what's the best way they can get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so Originality.ai, we do have a bunch of resources. So again, don't recommend it to be used within academia.
Sure.
But we know it is used heavily within academia. We have a bunch of resources to try and help navigate the challenges that comes with it. So Originality.ai, and then some resources on there for education. And I can be reached on LinkedIn or Twitter.
Yeah, and I can say to all the educators out there, I mean, this is one of those you put in that tool bag for your students that are going out into the world, because this is something that they will use beyond academia. This is something that they'll use whether they go on to a 4-year university or get a certification, or just jump right into the workforce.
Yeah, and I just want to throw out there real quick, for those that are so inclined, you guys actually have a whole Docker environment that folks can download and play around. Get your hands in the mud and play around with training and learning AI and all that kind of stuff, which I think is very, very cool. But not for the faint at heart. I'm just kidding. but I do think it's cool that is something that you guys put out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we try and definitely, I mean, it's such a confusing topic, both like AI and detection. We try and provide as much transparent information as possible, because I think there's a lot of claims around detection that are not backed up by studies, and so we try and overcompensate and overcorrect for that lack by others.
Yeah, and don't forget, definitely visit Originality.ai. There's a lot of stuff on there, even some free AI tools. Everything's there. Go and visit it. It's a great website. Hey, John, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, man.
It's been fun.
Hey, I want to thank Jon Gillham from Originality.ai for coming on. Really cool stuff there. We talk about AI a lot on the show, and the goods, the bads, the ups, the downs.
Take the good. You take the bad.
All right there. All right, Tootie.
Sorry.
No, thanks, John. Thanks for coming in. They don't really push academia, but as even John said, there's so many places it can be used. They're there for the real world market of it. But we think about we always think down the road. You learn throughout life. We're all students, so and we're all trying to make ourselves better at something. And this is one of those things that if anything, fact checking, plagiarism detection, the readability checker, that's a big one for me.
It is.
Is it readable? David and I sit around a lot writing our stuff out, because we're a writing team in that sense. Then we have to bounce off. Is that readable? Is the readability there? Well, heck, we need this. That would save us some time. So.
And that's those are the types of things, and even what they're doing. Even though their primary market is not academia, they have fallen into that realm of offering a service that a particular sector, right, the academic sector, grabbed a hold of and went, well, you might not have intended us to use this, but we are going to use it. And at that point, and I think he's done a pretty good job of starting to navigate that particular field, recognizing that they're using it, whether we meant for them to in that way or not, or at all or not. That's a segment that's using it, so we need to figure out and make sure that we navigate that appropriately, and that's not always easy.
Well, and when you come to a business, when you come to that, I mean, it's like we're talking there. If I'm a local business owner and I've got to put out a paragraph on Facebook, I need it to be original. It has to have integrity. Mm-hmm. It has to be the real thing, and it has to be readable in that paragraph, because I am personally, you and I see a lot of AI generated on YouTube, generated on TikTok, Instagram. We see all these videos with the AI voice and the whole thing's done. And I lose a little respect for those sites every time I see it. I'm like, I don't have, what the heck's the difference here?
I am 100% in agreement on that. As a matter of fact, we had talked about that, when you go to Google and you type something in, the very first thing you see is an AI response, trying to kind of take all of the synopsis of all of the results and present something, I scroll immediately right past it. I don't care. I don't want to know what AI has to say,
right?
Because I don't have the faith in what it's returning, so I skip that. And then likewise, for those of us, old fogies that are still on Facebook, I don't know if you've seen or not, but if you're in Facebook groups and there's a particular string of conversation, when you go to that particular conversation, the Facebook AI has a summary that says, most people seem to be talking about blah, blah, blah. And most people, and some people are agreeing on this, but other people are saying this and blah, blah. I don't care. I'm not reading the AI summary. I'm going to go down. I'm going to read the comments. And I think that's one of the oversaturated dangers that we have of, AI being everywhere and shoved in our face.
Right.
Is just that, sometimes it feels like you can't get away from it. But by the same token, there are plenty of folks that they are the ones using it, to, generate articles that they turn in as their own and then get paid.
Right. And like I said at the very first of the interview, I've been using AI.
Right.
It helps me. I become a better writer. It helps me express myself, or sound smarter than I am. But as a team, I think we'll say if we're going to put something up that's AI generated, we're just going to tell you, hey, this was this show summary was generated with AI.
Right,
it was better than David and I could have written, and it was there it is. So and here's the transcript, and boom, boom, boom. That's just cool.
Well, and
that's a tool that can be used.
It is, and I think one of the important things is that we also don't take it at face value. Whenever if we have a summary that was generated through AI transcription system, we read over that to make sure that it is accurate. Does it make sense? Is what it says happened actually what happened?
Right.
And then that's one of the benefits to me of co-writing, if you will, with AI, is that, at the end of the day, we control the backspace key.
Right. Yeah. And so much of it we see now is they generate it, they post it, then it's done. And that's a no-no.
Yeah, that is.
Hong Kong Fooey come chop. Don't like that. I was thinking about that. Hong Kong Fooey. Yeah, I saw somewhere on social media, might have been AI generated, that it was the 50th anniversary of Hong Kong Fooey.
Wow.
Yeah, it came out like this week, or I don't know when you're listening to this, but
so I was
1974.
Yeah, so we watched the original OG.
That's right.
Hong Kong Fooey when it was released.
We were 5 years old, somewhere in that age, and here we are at 10-year-olds hosting a podcast.
We've grown so much. Our parents are so proud of us.
Those 10-year-olds have the best podcast on educational technology that's out there. Hey, listen, it's been a great show. I want to thank Jon again for coming on, Originality.ai. Hey, I'm Jeff Madlock.
I'm David Henderson.
We'll catch you on the next time.
You've been listening to the EduTech Guys, edutechguys.com.